A gunshot split the crisp morning air as Katherine Walker ducked behind the old oak barrel, heart pounding against her ribs like a wild mustang. Fargo, Dakota Territory, 1883, a place where most women came to join husbands or find them, not to build a life alone. But Katherine wasn't most women, and this dusty frontier town was about to learn that lesson, whether it wanted to or not. The bullet had struck the dirt just inches from her boot, sending a spray of earth into the air. Katherine peered over the barrel's edge to see Sheriff Thompson lowering his pistol, a scowl cutting across his weathered face. "That was your final warning, Miss Walker," he called, spitting a stream of tobacco juice into the dirt. "No more treating patients without a proper medical license. Next time, I won't be aiming at the ground." Katherine rose slowly, brushing dust from her simple blue dress, her auburn hair escaping its pins in the morning breeze. At 26, she'd traveled across half the country with her medical bag and knowledge gleaned from her physician father before his passing. What she lacked in formal credentials, she made up for with steady hands and unwavering determination. "Those people needed help, Sheriff," she replied, voice steady despite her racing pulse. "Dr. Weber hasn't been sober enough to set a broken bone in weeks." The sheriff's mouth tightened. "That ain't your concern. This town has rules. And your town would have one less child in it if I'd followed them." Katherine lifted her chin. "Little Tommy Edwards would have bled to death waiting for Dr. Weber to finish his whiskey." A small crowd had gathered on the dusty Main Street, watching the confrontation with a mixture of curiosity and judgment. Katherine felt their stares like physical weight, some grateful, most suspicious. She'd been in Fargo just 3 months, long enough to help deliver 2 babies, treat a dozen fevers, and set 4 broken bones, but not long enough to be accepted. "Pack your bags and be on the morning stage," Sheriff Thompson ordered, holstering his pistol. "Fargo doesn't need your kind of trouble." Katherine opened her mouth to argue when a deep voice cut through the tension. "I believe that's not your decision to make, Sheriff." The crowd parted as Vincent Quinn rode forward on his chestnut stallion. Even seated, his presence commanded attention, broad-shouldered and sun-bronzed, with eyes the color of a summer storm. He tipped his worn Stetson toward Katherine before dismounting with the fluid grace of a man who'd spent his life in the saddle. "This doesn't concern you, Quinn," the sheriff warned. "A man standing for the law drawing on an unarmed woman concerns every decent person," Vincent replied, his voice deceptively soft. "Especially when that woman saved my ranch hand's life last week when your precious doctor was face down at Maddie's saloon." Katherine knew Vincent Quinn by reputation, owner of the Thunderbolt Ranch, the largest spread within 50 miles. Unlike many of the territory's cattle barons, he had a reputation for fairness, paying good wages and hiring Sioux men when others wouldn't. She'd never spoken to him directly, though she'd treated several of his ranch hands. "She's practicing medicine without a license," the sheriff insisted, though with noticeably less conviction. Vincent stepped closer. "Last I checked, Dakota Territory has precious few licensed physicians. What it does have is people who need care." He turned to Katherine, his expression softening. "Miss Walker, I believe my foreman's wife is struggling with a difficult pregnancy. Would you consider making a house call out at the ranch? We'd compensate you fairly." The invitation was clearly more than a request for medical assistance. It was protection, a public declaration of support that even the sheriff wouldn't dare challenge. Katherine nodded, relief washing over her. "I'd be happy to help, Mr. Quinn." "Good." Vincent turned back to the sheriff. "I trust there won't be any more gunplay in our streets. Mayor Wilson might have questions about a lawman threatening a woman providing essential services to this community." Sheriff Thompson's face darkened, but he gave a curt nod before stalking away, the crowd dispersing in his wake. Katherine approached Vincent, medical bag clutched in her hands. "Thank you, Mr. Quinn, though I don't want to bring trouble to your door." "Vincent, please," he corrected with a smile that softened his weathered features. "And trouble seems to find its way regardless. Might as well be for something worthwhile." He gestured to his horse. "Do you ride, Miss Walker? It's a fair distance to the ranch." "Katherine," she offered in return. "And yes, though it's been some time." Vincent helped her mount behind him, her medical bag secured to the saddle. As they rode out of town, Katherine felt the stares of the townspeople following them, some curious, some disapproving, a few openly hostile. "They'll come around," Vincent said, as if reading her thoughts. "Folks out here are slow to trust but loyal once won over." "Some people never warm to outsiders," Katherine replied, thinking of the women who crossed to the other side of the street when she approached, the whispers that followed her into the general store. "True enough," Vincent acknowledged. "But Fargo needs someone like you, whether they know it yet or not." The Thunderbolt Ranch sprawled across the rolling prairie, a collection of well-maintained buildings clustered around a two-story main house. As they approached, Katherine noted the careful organization, the signs of prosperity without ostentation. This was a working ranch, not a showpiece. A heavily pregnant woman waited on the porch, her face drawn with pain and exhaustion. Beside her stood a worried-looking man Katherine recognized as Vincent's foreman, Miguel Santos. "She's been having pains since yesterday," Miguel explained as Katherine dismounted. "Not regular yet, but stronger than before." Katherine nodded reassuringly. "Let me examine her, and we'll see what's happening." The next hour passed in quiet concentration as Katherine examined Alina Santos, listened to the baby's heartbeat, and assessed the situation. When she finally emerged from the bedroom, Vincent and Miguel were waiting anxiously in the hallway. "The baby is presenting breech," Katherine explained. "It's trying to come feet first instead of head first. With your permission, I'd like to try to turn the baby." Miguel looked to Vincent, who nodded encouragingly. "Whatever you need to do," Miguel agreed. "Just save them both." "I'll do my best," Katherine promised, returning to Alina's side. The procedure was delicate and painful, requiring all of Katherine's skill and Alina's courage. After nearly 40 minutes of careful manipulation, Katherine felt the baby shift into the proper position. "There," she said, wiping sweat from her brow. "The baby's turned. Now we wait for labor to progress naturally." By nightfall, Alina had delivered a healthy baby boy, his lusty cries filling the ranch house. Miguel wept openly as he held his son for the first time, while Alina, exhausted but radiant, thanked Katherine repeatedly. "You have a gift," Vincent observed quietly as Katherine washed her hands in the kitchen basin. "One this territory desperately needs." "A gift many don't want," she replied wearily. "Not from a woman without formal credentials." "Stay," Vincent said suddenly. "Here at the ranch, I have 20 families working this land who need medical care. You'd be safe here, respected for your skills." The offer was tempting, a place where she could practice freely, away from the sheriff's threats and the town's judgment. But Katherine shook her head. "I came to Fargo because towns need doctors more than isolated ranches. Children, elderly folks, women who can't travel miles for care, they're the ones who suffer most." She dried her hands, determination returning. "I can't abandon them because some find my presence uncomfortable." Vincent studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Then I'll help you stay in town. The sheriff answers to the town council, and I happen to sit on it." "Why would you do that for me?" Katherine asked, genuinely puzzled. "You barely know me." Vincent's gaze was steady, his expression thoughtful. My wife died in childbirth 5 years ago. The doctor was 3 days' ride away. He glanced toward the room where Alina now rested with her newborn. No one should lose family because help isn't available. The pain in his voice was raw, despite the years that had passed. Katherine understood then that Vincent Quinn's interest in her skills went beyond mere kindness or principle. "I'm sorry for your loss," she said softly, "and I would be grateful for your support." They returned to town the following morning, Katherine having spent the night monitoring Alina and the baby. To her surprise, Vincent escorted her directly to her small rented room behind the apothecary rather than dropping her at the edge of town. "Best to establish immediately that you have allies," he explained as he helped her down from his horse. "I'll speak with Mayor Wilson this afternoon about your situation." 3 days later, Katherine received an official letter from the town council. She was permitted to continue providing medical care in Fargo, provided she worked under the nominal supervision of Dr. Weber and did not charge more than half his standard rates for services. It was far from ideal, but it was permission to stay, to help, to build something. Word spread quickly that Katherine Walker was officially sanctioned to practice medicine. Patients began appearing at her door, first the poor who couldn't afford Dr. Weber, then ranch hands who preferred her gentle approach, and finally, reluctantly, the wives and children of merchants and bankers when Dr. Weber was unavailable or incapacitated, which was increasingly often. Throughout the summer, Vincent Quinn appeared regularly in town, always making a point to stop by Katherine's small office. Sometimes he brought patients a ranch hand with a gashed leg, a cook with a burned arm. Other times he brought supplies, fresh herbs for her remedies, clean bandages, a new lamp for better light during examinations. Their friendship grew with each visit, conversations stretching longer, smiles coming easier. Katherine found herself looking forward to the sight of him riding down Main Street, hat tipped against the sun, always with that quiet smile when their eyes met. The town noticed. Gossip spread like wildfire, speculation running rampant about the nature of their relationship. Katherine tried to ignore it, but the whispers followed her everywhere: the unmarried female doctor and the widowed rancher, an unconventional pair in a place that valued conformity above all else. "You've become quite the topic of conversation," Martha Reynolds, the baker's wife, remarked one morning as Katherine purchased bread. "Mr. Quinn's interest in your practice has raised more than a few eyebrows." "Mr. Quinn appreciates having medical care available for his workers," Katherine replied evenly. "There's nothing improper about our association." Martha's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Of course not, though you should know the Mother's Circle is meeting next Thursday. All the respectable ladies of Fargo attend. Perhaps you'd like to join us. It might help certain impressions." The invitation surprised Katherine. The Mother's Circle was the heart of Fargo's social structure, where the wives of prominent businessmen and ranchers gathered to organize charity events, discuss town improvements, and solidify the social hierarchy. "I'd be honored," Katherine said carefully. "Though I should mention I have no children." Martha's smile tightened. "Yes, well, it's more about one's standing in the community. 3 o'clock at my home," she paused. "Do wear something appropriate." The message was clear: an opportunity to be accepted, to become part of the fabric of Fargo rather than remain an outsider. Katherine spent the entire week anticipating the meeting, even using precious savings to purchase fabric for a new dress, something more fashionable than her practical everyday attire. Thursday arrived bright and clear. Katherine closed her office early, bathed carefully, and donned her new dress, a deep green that complemented her auburn hair. She arrived at Martha Reynolds' grand house precisely at 3 o'clock, a small bouquet of wildflowers in hand as a hostess gift. The parlor fell silent as she entered, a dozen women in fine dresses staring at her with expressions ranging from curiosity to barely disguised hostility. "Miss Walker," Martha greeted her, accepting the flowers with a perfunctory smile. "How unexpected. We thought perhaps you'd be too busy with your patients to attend." Katherine recognized the subtle slight but smiled through it. "I made arrangements to be available. I'm eager to become more involved in community affairs." The next 2 hours were an exercise in polite warfare. Each time Katherine attempted to contribute to discussions about the Harvest Festival or the new schoolhouse, her comments were politely acknowledged, then summarily ignored. When the conversation turned to children and motherhood, pointed glances were exchanged across teacups. "Of course, only a mother truly understands certain matters of the heart," Beatrice Hollies, the banker's wife, remarked with a sidelong glance at Katherine. "There's wisdom that comes only through raising children." "I deliver children," Katherine offered. "While not the same as raising them, it does provide certain insights. How is Dr. Weber these days?" interrupted Harriet Miller, changing the subject abruptly. "My husband says he's considering retirement soon." "I wouldn't know," Katherine replied. "We don't consult on cases." Harriet exchanged looks with Martha. One would think a proper apprenticeship would involve more guidance. The conversation moved on, but the message was clear. Katherine was not one of them, not a mother, not a wife, not even a properly trained physician. She was an outsider, tolerated but not accepted. As the meeting concluded, Martha drew Katherine aside with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "It was lovely having you, dear, but I should explain. The Mother's Circle is restricted to ladies who have experienced the blessing of motherhood. It's in our charter, you see. While we appreciate your interest, membership would be inappropriate." Katherine maintained her composure, thanking Martha for the clarification and bidding the ladies goodbye with all the dignity she could muster. But as she walked home, the rejection stung more than she wanted to admit. She had hoped that providing medical care might eventually lead to acceptance, that her skills would outweigh her unconventional status. She was so lost in thought that she didn't notice Vincent Quinn waiting outside her office until she nearly walked into him. "Katherine," he said, steadying her with gentle hands on her shoulders. "Are you all right? You look troubled." The concern in his eyes nearly undid her composure. "I'm fine," she insisted, unlocking her office door. "Just a disappointing afternoon." Vincent followed her inside. "The Mother's Circle meeting, I take it? Word travels fast in Fargo." Katherine sighed, removing her hat and gloves. "I should have known better. A woman who delivers babies but has none of her own isn't welcome in their ranks. I'm good enough to birth their children, but not to sit among them as an equal." Vincent's expression darkened. "Their loss, then. Their narrow-mindedness doesn't diminish your worth." "It's not about worth," Katherine explained, sinking into her desk chair. "It's about belonging. I came to Fargo to build something, to be part of a community, but after 6 months I'm still the outsider, still the woman they whisper about." Vincent knelt beside her chair, surprising her with the earnestness in his gaze. "You're still the heart of this town, Katherine. Those women with their teas and gossip, they're not Fargo. The families who trust you with their lives, the children who run to greet you on the street, the ranch hands who ride for hours seeking your care, that's Fargo. And you've touched more lives in 6 months than their circle has in years." His words washed over her like balm on an open wound. "Thank you," she whispered, fighting sudden tears. "I needed to hear that today." Vincent rose, offering his hand. "Come to dinner at the ranch this Sunday. Alina is eager to see you, and she's promised to make her famous chicken mole to thank you properly for delivering Pablo." The invitation was tempting, but Katherine hesitated. "The gossip will only get worse if I'm seen riding out to your ranch for social occasions." "Let them talk," Vincent said with surprising fierceness. "I've spent too many years caring about what others think. Life's too short for such concerns." His expression softened. "Besides, it's hardly unchaperoned. 20 ranch families will be there to welcome you." Katherine found herself agreeing before she'd fully thought it through. Perhaps it was the warmth in Vincent's eyes, or simply the weariness of constantly guarding her reputation. Either way, the prospect of an afternoon away from town's judgmental gaze was too appealing to resist. Sunday dawned clear and bright. Katherine closed her office and donned a simple but becoming blue dress, her heart lighter than it had been in days. Vincent arrived precisely at noon, driving a smart buggy rather than riding horseback. "I thought you might appreciate a more comfortable journey," he explained as he helped her up. The ride to Thunderbolt Ranch passed in easy conversation, Vincent pointing out landmarks and sharing stories about the territory's history. Katherine found herself laughing more than she had in months, the tension of town life easing from her shoulders with each mile. The ranch was bustling with activity when they arrived. Children played in the yard, women chatted on the porch, and men gathered near the corral discussing cattle prices. Alina Santos rushed forward to embrace Katherine, baby Pablo secure in her arms. "You honor us with your visit," she said warmly. "Come, everyone is eager to thank you properly." What followed was unlike any social gathering Katherine had experienced in Fargo. The ranch families, a mix of white settlers, Mexican immigrants, and 2 Sioux families who worked as trackers, welcomed her without reservation. Children proudly showed her healed injuries she'd treated. Mothers introduced babies she'd delivered, and men expressed heartfelt gratitude for care provided to their families. Dinner was served outdoors on long tables beneath cottonwood trees. Katherine found herself seated beside Vincent at the head table, an honor that wasn't lost on her. The food was plentiful and delicious: Alina's chicken mole, fresh bread, vegetables from the ranch garden, and sweet berry pies for dessert. As twilight settled over the prairie, someone produced a fiddle, and impromptu dancing began in the yard. Vincent turned to Katherine with a questioning smile. "Would you do me the honor?" he asked, offering his hand. Dancing with Vincent Quinn beneath the emerging stars, surrounded by smiling faces and genuine warmth, Katherine felt a sense of belonging she'd almost forgotten was possible. His hand at her waist was respectful but warm, his steps confident as he guided her through the lively tune. "You dance beautifully," he murmured as they turned. "My father insisted I learn," she replied, smiling at the memory. "He said a doctor should understand the body's movements even in recreation." "A wise man," Vincent observed. "He must be proud of what you've accomplished." Katherine's smile faltered slightly. "He died 3 years ago, influenza. I couldn't save him despite everything he taught me." Vincent's hand tightened on hers. "I'm sorry. It seems we both understand loss too well." As the music slowed to a gentle waltz, their conversation deepened. Vincent spoke of his late wife Caroline, the daughter of a neighboring rancher who'd captured his heart when they were barely 20. He described their plans for a large family, cut short when complications arose during her first pregnancy. "After she died, I couldn't imagine loving again," he admitted as they moved slowly beneath the stars. "It felt like a betrayal of her memory." "And now?" Katherine asked softly, her heart quickening at the intensity in his gaze. "Now I wonder if the greater betrayal might be refusing to live fully," he replied. Caroline wanted children running through our home, laughter in every room. Instead, I've kept it silent as a mausoleum." The music ended, but they remained standing close, something unspoken passing between them. Then Pablo's crying broke the moment, Elena calling for Katherine to check the baby's persistent cough. The ride back to town was quieter, both lost in thought. When they reached her small home, Vincent helped her down from the buggy, his hand lingering on hers. "Thank you for today," Katherine said. "It meant more than I can express." "The pleasure was mine," Vincent replied. "And Katherine, what I said about you being the heart of this town, I meant it. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise." He leaned forward and with gentle hesitation pressed a kiss to her cheek. The gesture was brief but charged with possibility, leaving Katherine breathless as she watched him drive away. The following weeks brought changes to Fargo. Dr. Weber, after a particularly spectacular bout of public intoxication, announced his retirement and departure for Denver, leaving Katherine as the town's sole medical provider. The town council, led by Vincent's influence, officially recognized her as Fargo's physician, dropping the pretense of Weber's supervision. With her position secured, Katherine's practice flourished. She converted a small, abandoned storefront into a proper clinic, complete with examination rooms and a small surgery. Vincent helped with renovations, often appearing with lumber, paint, or workers from his ranch willing to lend a hand. Their growing closeness did not go unnoticed. The Mother's Circle ladies watched with disapproving eyes as Vincent's buggy became a regular sight outside Katherine's clinic. When he escorted her to church on Sundays or joined her for dinner at the hotel restaurant, whispers followed. "They say she's set her cap for him," Katherine overheard Martha Reynolds telling Harriet Miller outside the general store. "Poor man probably feels obligated after she delivered his foreman's baby." "A proper lady would be more concerned with appearances," Harriet agreed. "But then, we all know she's not a proper lady." The gossip stung, but Katherine found herself increasingly able to ignore it, secure in the knowledge that her work mattered more than social acceptance. When influenza swept through Fargo in early winter, even her harshest critics were forced to acknowledge her dedication as she worked day and night tending to the sick. Vincent appeared at her clinic on the epidemic's 5th day, finding Katherine exhausted but still moving between patients with determined efficiency. "You need rest," he insisted, taking in her pale face and shadowed eyes. "You can't help anyone if you collapse." "I can't leave them," Katherine argued, checking a child's fever with the back of her hand. "Mrs. Thompson's baby is struggling to breathe, and Mr. Davis's fever hasn't broken." Vincent gently but firmly took her arm. "I've brought Rosa from the ranch. She's nursed through 3 influenza outbreaks and knows what to do." 2 hours, Katherine. Sleep for 2 hours while I watch over things." Too exhausted to argue further, Katherine allowed herself to be led to the small cot in her back room. She was asleep almost before her head touched the pillow. When she woke, the clinic was quiet. Vincent sat beside her cot reading by lamplight. Outside, snow fell gently against the window. "How long?" she asked, sitting up quickly. 4 hours, he admitted. "You needed it. Don't worry, Rosa has everything well in hand. Mrs. Thompson's baby is breathing easier and Mr. Davis's fever broke an hour ago." Katherine should have been angry at his interference, but relief won out. "Thank you," she said simply. Vincent set aside his book. In the soft lamplight, his face was contemplative, almost vulnerable. "I've been thinking about what you said that day after the Mother's Circle rejected you. About belonging." Katherine nodded, uncertain where the conversation was heading. "When Caroline died, I thought I'd never belong anywhere again," Vincent continued. The ranch became just land and buildings, not a home. I existed, worked, built a successful business, but I wasn't living. He met her eyes. Until you arrived in Fargo. Catherine's breath caught as he took her hand. I find myself looking for excuses to ride into town, he confessed. Planning what to say to make you smile, thinking about you when I should be focusing on ranch business. A rueful smile crossed his face. I haven't felt this way in 5 years. It terrifies me and exhilarates me in equal measure. Katherine squeezed his hand, her heart pounding. I've tried so hard not to care for you, she admitted. Convincing myself it was friendship, gratitude, professional respect, anything but what it truly is. And what is it? Vincent asked softly. Love, she whispered, the word both frightening and freeing. I've fallen in love with you, Vincent Quinn. The kiss that followed was gentle at first, then deeper, years of loneliness and longing expressed in a single embrace. When they finally parted, breathless and smiling, Vincent rested his forehead against hers. Marry me, he said simply. Not immediately, I know you value your independence. But when you're ready, let me build a life with you, a real home. We could expand the clinic, bring in another doctor so you could have time at the ranch too. The town will talk, Katherine warned, though her heart soared at his words. The town always talks, Vincent replied with a laugh. Let them. We'll be too busy living to notice. Their courtship progressed through the winter, becoming the favorite topic of Fargo gossip. Katherine continued her medical practice, while Vincent divided his time between the ranch and town, often bringing supplies or assistance during particularly busy periods. The influenza epidemic eventually subsided, leaving Fargo grateful for Katherine's care despite lingering social reservations. When spring arrived, bringing new life to the prairie, Vincent formally announced their engagement at Sunday services, presenting Katherine with his mother's sapphire ring. The Mother's Circle ladies observed this development with mixed reactions. Some, like Martha Reynolds, maintained their disapproval. Others, particularly those whose families Katherine had treated during the epidemic, began to soften their stance. He's making a dreadful mistake, Martha insisted during an emergency Mother's Circle meeting called specifically to discuss the engagement. A woman who puts medicine above motherhood can hardly be expected to be a proper wife. She saved my Tommy's life during the influenza, countered Sarah Johnson, normally a quiet presence in the group, and sat with him all night when the fever nearly took him. I don't care if she never attends our meetings, that's a woman with a good heart. The debate continued without resolution, but Katherine found she cared less with each passing day. Her life was filling with plans for the future, expanding the clinic, training a nurse to assist her, renovating the ranch house to accommodate her medical books and equipment. 2 weeks before their planned June wedding, disaster struck. A flash flood swept through a low-lying area of the Thunderbolt Ranch, washing away fences and stranding a dozen cattle in rapidly rising water. Vincent and his ranch hands worked desperately to save the animals, wading into the dangerous current to guide them to higher ground. Katherine received word late in the afternoon when Miguel Santos rode into town, his horse lathered and his expression grim. Vincent's been hurt, he reported, barely waiting for his mount to stop before dismounting. Got pinned between a scared steer and a tree, his legs badly broken, maybe worse. Katherine grabbed her medical bag, already moving toward the door. Saddle a fresh horse, I'm coming now. The ride to the ranch seemed endless, though Miguel pushed their mounts to a dangerous pace. They arrived to find Vincent in the main house, pale with pain but conscious. His right leg lay at an unnatural angle, blood seeping through his torn trousers. I'm sorry about the mess, he joked weakly as Katherine cut away the fabric to examine the wound. Not quite the welcome I'd planned. Save your breath, she replied, focused entirely on assessing the damage. The break was compound, the bone protruding through the skin. Without proper treatment, infection would set in quickly, possibly necessitating amputation. I need to set this properly, she told Miguel. Boil water, bring clean linens, and find me whiskey for him and for cleaning the wound. The next hours were a battle against time and damage. Katherine cleaned the wound, extracted bone fragments, and set the break as best she could, using improvised splints to immobilize the leg. Vincent endured the painful procedure with gritted teeth, refusing laudanum until the worst was over. Will he keep the leg? Miguel asked quietly as Katherine finally straightened, wiping blood from her hands. If infection doesn't set in, she replied. The next few days are critical. Katherine didn't leave Vincent's side for the next 3 days, sleeping in short bursts beside his bed, constantly monitoring for fever or signs of infection. By the 4th day, when the wound remained clean and Vincent's temperature normal, she finally allowed herself to believe the worst had passed. "You've ruined our wedding plans," she teased gently as she changed his bandages. "June is out of the question now." Vincent caught her hand. "Marry me anyway," he said. "Here now before the circuit preacher leaves town. I don't want to wait another day." "Don't be ridiculous," Katherine scolded. "You can barely stand." "I don't need to stand to say vows," Vincent argued. "I almost died out there, Katherine." It made me realize how foolish it is to postpone happiness for propriety's sake. His earnestness wore down her resistance. 3 days later, with Vincent propped up in bed and Katherine standing beside him in a hastily altered blue dress, they exchanged vows before the circuit preacher, Miguel and Alina serving as witnesses. News of the unconventional ceremony spread quickly through Fargo. Katherine returned to town a married woman, moving her belongings to the ranch while maintaining her clinic in town 3 days a week. To her surprise, a delegation from the Mother's Circle awaited her at the clinic her first day back. Martha Reynolds stood at the front, her expression uncharacteristically uncertain. "We've come to offer congratulations on your marriage," she said stiffly, "and to discuss the Fall Harvest Festival. The committee thought perhaps you might have insights on health precautions, given last year's difficulties." It wasn't acceptance into their circle, not quite, but it was an olive branch. Katherine accepted it graciously, offering suggestions while making it clear she had no expectations of membership in their exclusive group. As Martha turned to leave, she paused in the doorway. "Mr. Quinn was right, you know," she said reluctantly. "About you being the heart of this town. Not all of us were quick to see it, but, well, a good wife acknowledges when she's been mistaken." The acknowledgement, grudging though it was, meant more than Katherine would have expected months earlier. But her sense of belonging no longer depended on the Mother's Circle's approval. Vincent's recovery progressed slowly but steadily. By late summer, he was walking with a cane, determined to regain his full strength. Katherine divided her time between the ranch and clinic, finding unexpected joy in creating a home with Vincent while maintaining her medical practice. Their first real test as a married couple came in September, when a telegram arrived from the Dakota Medical Association. After reviewing testimonials about Katherine's work during the influenza epidemic, they were offering her the opportunity to complete formal medical training in Chicago, with a guaranteed position upon graduation. "You should go," Vincent said immediately upon hearing the news. "It's what you've always wanted, formal recognition of your skills." Katherine stared at him in disbelief. "It would mean leaving for 2 years, leaving Fargo." "Temporarily," Vincent corrected, "and I could visit. The ranch can manage without me for short periods. You'd wait for me." Katherine asked, searching his face. "Support me pursuing this." Vincent took her hands in his. "Katherine Quinn, I would wait decades if necessary. Your skills are a gift too precious to squander because of conventional expectations." He smiled, the warmth in his eyes undoing her uncertainty. "Besides, Fargo needs a properly certified doctor. What better than one who already knows its heart?" In the end, Katherine declined the Chicago offer but accepted a modified arrangement apprenticing with a licensed physician in Bismarck, 3 days each month while maintaining her Fargo practice. The schedule was demanding, but allowed her to continue both her medical work and her marriage. Vincent supported her completely, often driving her to Bismarck himself, and using the opportunity to conduct ranch business in the larger city. Their partnership deepened with each challenge, each compromise, each shared triumph. By the following spring, Katherine had earned her medical certification and expanded the Fargo clinic to include a small hospital wing. To her surprise, several members of the Mother's Circle volunteered as nurses during busy periods, Martha Reynolds among them. "My Herald says it's good business to support the town doctor," Martha explained when Katherine expressed surprise at her presence. "But between us, I've come to admire your determination. Not that I approve of all your methods, mind you, but results speak for themselves." Coming from Martha, it was practically a declaration of friendship. Katherine accepted it as such, gradually finding her place in Fargo's social fabric, not as a member of the Mother's Circle, but as a respected professional whose contribution to the community transcended conventional roles. As their first wedding anniversary approached, Katherine received news that brought their journey full circle. After a careful examination confirmed her suspicions, she rode home to the ranch with joy bubbling inside her. Vincent was in the barn, working with a new colt, when she arrived. He looked up with a smile that still made her heart quicken, setting aside his tools to greet her with a kiss. "You're home early," he observed. "No emergencies in town." "Just one matter that needed immediate attention," Katherine replied, taking his hands and placing them gently on her still flat stomach. "It seems Thunderbolt Ranch will have a new resident come winter." Vincent's expression transformed from confusion to wonder to pure joy. He lifted her into his arms, spinning her around despite his still healing leg, laughing through sudden tears. "Are you certain?" he asked, setting her down carefully. Katherine nodded, her own eyes bright with tears. "Quite certain. I am a doctor, after all." That evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the prairie gold, Vincent wrapped his arm around her shoulders. "I've been thinking," he said quietly, "about what made you come to Fargo in the first place, about how many communities need medical care but have none." Katherine nodded, understanding where his thoughts were leading. "You're thinking about expanding the clinic's reach." "A circuit doctor program," Vincent confirmed. "Using the ranch as a base, training nurses to assist, reaching the smaller settlements that have nothing. With the railroad coming through next year, it's becoming possible." The idea resonated with everything Katherine believed about medicine and service. "It would mean dividing my time even further," she cautioned. "We'll hire another doctor for Fargo," Vincent replied. "Someone you can train in your methods. The baby and I will travel with you when possible." He squeezed her hand. "We'll build something meaningful together, not just a family, but a legacy of care for this territory." In that moment, on their porch with the prairie stretching endlessly before them and new life growing within her, Katherine realized she had found exactly what she'd been searching for when she first arrived in Fargo. Not acceptance into some exclusive circle, but the chance to create something larger than herself, with a partner who valued her mind as much as her heart. "I love you, Vincent Quinn," she said simply, leaning into his embrace. "And I love you, Katherine Quinn," he replied, his hand resting protectively over their growing child. "Fargo's heart and mine." 7 months later, Katherine gave birth to twin boys, William for her father and Thomas for Vincent's. The mother's circle sent a handmade quilt with a note inviting her to attend their meetings whenever your duties permit. Katherine placed the quilt in the nursery, but felt no urgency to accept the invitation. She had found her circle in the patients who trusted her with their lives, in the ranch families who welcomed her as one of their own, in the expanding medical practice that was bringing care to communities throughout Dakota Territory. Most of all, in the family she and Vincent were building, rooted in mutual respect and shared purpose. 5 years after Katherine first arrived in Fargo with nothing but her medical bag and determination, the Thunderbolt Medical Circuit served 12 communities across Dakota Territory. The original Fargo clinic had expanded to a proper hospital with 3 doctors and 6 nurses, while Katherine divided her time between administrative duties, training new practitioners, and caring for difficult cases. Vincent managed both the ranch and the business aspects of their growing medical enterprise, proving as skilled at organization and fundraising as he was at cattle breeding. Their twin sons were joined by a sister, Carolina Lena, named for the women whose legacies had shaped their family's path. On a warm spring evening, as they watched their children playing in the ranch yard, Vincent wrapped his arm around Katherine's shoulders. "You ever regret it?" he asked. "Not joining their precious circle?" Katherine laughed, watching as William attempted to teach his little sister to rope a fence post. "How could I regret building this instead? We've created our own circle, Vincent, one that grows larger every year, based not on who's excluded but on who's welcomed in." Vincent pressed a kiss to her temple. "You were always the heart of this town, Katherine Quinn. Now you're the heart of something far greater." As twilight settled over the prairie, painting the landscape in shades of gold and purple, Katherine leaned into her husband's embrace, surrounded by the life they'd built together. She hadn't joined the mother's circle, but she had become something more valuable: a healer, a builder, a creator of new possibilities in a land that rewarded those brave enough to forge their own paths. And in that, she had found her true belonging.